right, guys, how you doing? Welcome to our women's squad update video, much earlier in the summer than we normally do things. And that's because we've got a lot to update you on. It's been a very busy summer at Hashtag, not just for the women's team, for Hashtag in general. We have now finished a very successful fundraising round. We have got some power behind us and we're going to do some incredible things. And some of you watching this are no doubt our new shareholders. So thank you once again for those of you that did invest in the club. We would normally do an update video like this at the very last possible minute of pre-season, because especially in a league where you haven't got a lot of contracted players, even people that say they're playing for you might not be playing for you. It's always moving, always changing. So we try and do it last minute. But there's a lot going on at the women's team that probably requires some explanation, and that's why I wanted to take this opportunity to do it with you. We're also going to officially meet our new manager, Dom Edwards. Really excited. He's going to be in the back end of this video. Yeah, just a very talented young manager. We're very happy to have him. He was part of a recruitment process, an interview process with some very good applicants. He shone, and very, very excited to have him leading us into this next chapter. And he's had a very busy summer, and he's going to tell us about some of that. But let's go back a little bit, and let's talk about how we got to where we are in the women's team. Actually, before we do all that, let's talk about the kit I'm wearing. The brand new VX3 hashtag away shirt. Some of you were triggered when you thought this was our new home shirt. We're yellow and blue, baby. We know this, but this is the away. We change the away up every year. Red, blue, first red shirt ever in hashtag history. Got the bespoke design, the hashtags everywhere. We've got the centralized badge for the first time. We've got a new badge, different badge on every shirt this year, because it's our 10-year anniversary, and VX3, our new partners, have absolutely smashed it. You can get these now, links in the description, very competitively priced as well, I might say, in a world where you can easily spend north of 100 quid on a Premier League shirt, which makes me physically vomit. This is much more affordable. So get involved and represent the tags. Okay, let's talk about women's football. So you probably know, if you kept up to date with things, that our previous manager now, Jason Stevens, has left the club. Obviously, let's start off by saying what a tenure he had at the Tags. You know, we inherited him when we merged with a team called AFC Basildon. He was the existing manager, and it was no reason why to change him. He'd actually helped the club survive himself before we got involved. So, you know, it's a no-brainer. And he was just so successful, you know, helped us get from tier 4 to tier 3. Some of the best moments in hashtag history, beating Newcastle, you know, building a real togetherness in a squad where we've always been outgunned financially against big teams. You know, obviously, your Newcastle, your Ipswich, your Portsmouths, your Watfords, your AFC Wimbledons, teams we've all beaten, and Jason and his staff were a big part of that. We found out around sort of February time this year that he was going to leave the club and he was going to go to Leyton Orient, which is a very interesting project, by the way. It is a much lower level. It is tier 7, so we're obviously tier 3, so it's a 4-division drop. But very ambitious owners, spending some money. No doubt, you know, it will be exciting for him and his staff who have all gone with him. Now, listen, I'm not going to try and paint this in a negative light, because I always look at in football as everything that happens to you that's unavoidable, you use it as an opportunity to be better, to grow, to improve. And that's what we're going to do at the Tags. But I'd be lying if I didn't say, and you know I like to be transparent with you guys, it's been a difficult few months on the women's side because of some of the things that have happened as a result. So Jason obviously left. And he's also recruited a lot of our players. Players he's managed for a long time. They're obviously loyal to Jason. And there's quite a few that have gone with him to Leyton Orient. Now, there's a sliding scale here. I think it's 6 or 7 players that have gone. He's taken some of the reserve players as well. And some of them, it makes perfect sense. You know, some of those players, it makes perfect sense. Players that are club legends, but maybe at a certain point in their career, want to just enjoy it, scoring loads of goals, having some fun with their pals. You know, there's a lot of money in that project as well, getting well paid. I get it. And listen, even the ones, there's a couple where I think maybe I'm not going to say they're making a mistake, but I think maybe if they were prioritising their football, they might have stayed at tier 3 because they're definitely capable of it. But I always say, and I've said this to the girls, you know, if you choose to leave and that's a decision that you're happy with for your life, then I'm happy for you. That's how I feel about all footballers that play for us. You know, it's not our job to hold people at the club. It's actually the opposite. They need to want to be here. They need to want to play for hashtag. And if that day comes that they don't want to do that, I'm happy for them to leave. And that's genuinely the truth. So there's quite a few that have moved on. We'll be announcing these on our socials, obviously. We wanted to get ahead of it. Some of them have been announced by Leyton Orient already. And forgive me if I miss anyone here, but the ones we know about are, you've got Vicky Frank, you've got Georgia Griffin, you've got Sammy Rowland, obviously, second top goal scorer in club history. You've got a couple that had started to move to Leyton Orient already last year, like Jade Keogh, Callie Balfour, Gemma Baker. Gemma Baker, over 100 appearances for the club, like what a legend. That was kind of when we started to realise that Jason was going to Leyton Orient. He started sending players there. And if I was to make one complaint, is that we actually found out through other sources. We weren't really told by the manager. And I think he'd started recruiting some of these players before he'd left. Well, I don't think, I know. Before he'd left hashtag. But the thing is, right, that's not ideal. And I don't necessarily agree with that. However, I'm not here to mug anyone off, because even if he didn't, I think the results would be the same. You know, he's still going to be joining a compelling project, and he's going to be making a pitch to players to come and join him. I would argue that he didn't need to do it in the middle of our season, because he would have got those players anyway, I think. And I think, if I'm honest, this is not a reflection on Jason here, it's a reflection on me. And I always want to own my strengths and weaknesses. I'm learning on the job here at hashtag. I think when I found this stuff out, I should have made a change then. But maybe being a bit of a softie, I very much wanted us to see the season out with a manager who I, can only say good things about what he's done for this football club ultimately and the success he's brought us. I wanted him to see the season out. I wanted him to have the cup final against Billericay. I wanted him to try and win the league as we were going head to head with Ipswich. I also wanted the players to finish the season, in not a distressed sort of turmoil situation. But when I look at the way other clubs that do things, now I do think what I interpreted as maybe an egotistical decision, if I would just sort of throw my weight around and get rid of a manager because I'm not happy about something, I now see as actually maybe other chairmen putting their club first and saying, no, if you don't respect the badge, you leave. And this isn't even just a Jason thing. We had a few things last year with different people in the men's team as well. They started to not respect the badge, in my opinion, and everyone has to respect the badge. Hashtag, we deserve that respect. We've done a lot of incredible things, and we continue to do a lot of incredible things for our players and staff. If the day comes when people are not communicating their decisions properly, we have to take action going forward now. So that's a big learning curve for me. I'd say there's nothing within the players that have moved on. I have no issue, and the management, no bad blood whatsoever. I think some things could have been communicated better, but that doesn't mean that I don't agree with their decision or have any issue with it. Learning curve for me, as I say. But again, everything that happens is a challenge. You get an opportunity. So as a result, we met Dom, and we're going to meet him properly in this video, and we're really happy with him coming in. We've obviously signed some players. Now, there is quite a few players leaving this summer, and I've mentioned the ones from Leighton Orient. Sorry, I didn't finish talking about Grace Gillard and Hayley West, which are no disrespect to the other players, but I'd probably say the two biggest departures from our first team, along with Sammy Rowland, in terms of the roles they've played in recent years. Grace Gillard being our captain, Hayley West, just being my kind of player, to be honest. I said this to her all the time when she played for us. I love watching Hayley. She got a great goal against Ipswich this year, both in the 100 club. Grace Gillard, I think only Matty Waldridge has got more games for the tags than Grace. So they will be missed 100%. And they obviously could play at tier 3, if not higher. So I hope that they don't look back on their decision to play in tier 7 with anything other than positivity. And I wish them the best. But that obviously leaves a bit of a hole. There's another hole being created this summer as well for completely different reasons. It's just a bit of a perfect storm. So there's a couple other players that are really significant players that are moving on, but all for very good reasons, right? The first one is Malika Opindia. Now, Malika, again, all-time top goal scorer now in hashtag history, men and women. She's number 1. She got that special goal against Billericay in the Essex Cup final that took her to number 1 at the back end of last season. And she got a lot of those goals playing left back, by the way. Honestly, a phenomenal player, absolute athlete. Love Malika. She asked to move. She was on contract, so we actually technically could have kept her. She asked to move. What you probably don't know about Malika is that she's played for us for 4 years now, and she's done like a 2-hour trip to training and matches 3 times a week. She doesn't live anywhere near where our club's based. She lived in Luton. I think now she lives in Milton Keynes. It's a couple of hours away, right? And she basically saw a lot of her mates moving on and said, look, I want to use this opportunity to go and get a club closer to home. And I can't argue with that. I would have loved to keep Malika. You guys know how much we all love Malika. But also, she's earned the right to ask that, in my opinion. What a servant to the club she's been. So I did say, look, give me a few months. Let me negotiate a deal for you. And we had quite a lot of interest in her, to be honest. But we have sold her for a club record fee to Rugby Borough. The good thing about that is Rugby Borough are at our level. They're nearer her house, but they're not in our league. They're in the Northern Prem, so we don't have to play competitively against her in the league, although we are playing a friendly against Rugby very soon, so we'll see her soon. But we love Malika. Thank you for everything. And I'll say this about all the other players that have left to Leighton Orient or elsewhere as well. Football's a funny old game. You never know what's around the corner. So I'd always leave the door open for players to return. So I have nothing but great memories of the players that have left. Another one being Sophie Bajan. What a player. The standout player from last year. No mistake. Standout player maybe at the tier last year. This is a good thing. I mean, it's no good thing losing Sophie Bajan because she's such a good player. but she's going up. She's going up. She's going to go full time. As I'm recording this, I don't think it's been announced yet. The rumours are she's going to sign for Ipswich, but she's definitely going to sign for someone at a championship level. And we wish her the absolute best. This is what our club's about, right? Giving those young players a platform. We signed Sophie Bajan. She was a standout player in a really poor Tier 3 team in a relegation battle. We signed her as a centre-back. Jason turned her into a centre-mid. Revelation, a player that deserved that platform, a player that has earned that move completely off her own merit, but we gave her the platform, and I love doing that. And for every, for the sad loss of Sophie Bajan, that is then going to help us probably recruit 10 more players when we say, look, you could be the next Sophie Bajan. So thank you, Sophie. We wish you the best as well. Bright future there. And the third one, I'm not going to go into too much detail about because it's a private matter for the player. But Courtney Lumley, who is an absolute, one of the best centre-halves I've seen in women's football, who we absolutely love as well, is going through like a significant health issue at the moment. And out of respect to her, I won't talk about it. But I hope, obviously, we back her all the way and we hope that she gets through it. And if she does, I hope she returns to football because the game will be worse off without her. But she's got other things to prioritise right now, and we support that. And if there's ever a chance for her to sign back for the Tags, that would be something we'd love to do. But equally, whatever she does, she has our full support. But she's not going to be with us next season, right? Now, that's 3 top players I've just said there. Sophie Bajan, Malika, Courtney. You all know how good they are. There's no way I can sort of dress that to be a good thing, losing players of that quality. But it makes us step up and create a challenge. And so that's why we got Dom in early doors as soon as we could. And we spent the summer recruiting. The recruiting's not finished. We're still doing it. But we wanted to get this update to you because you're going to start to see these players moving on. But I'm incredibly excited about the new look #women's team. It is going to be a new team. There are some returning players as well, some you'll be very fond of. Dom will talk about that in a minute. But it's a chance for Dom to put his own fingerprints on this team. And it's also our first chance to really build a women's team. Jason picked new players up along the last sort of 4 or 5 years, but we kind of inherited his team. And now this is the first #women's team. Do you know what I mean? We're building it from scratch almost. So I'm really excited. Tier 3 is always a challenge. We've finished second 2 years in a row. But Jason always over-delivered in that department, to be honest, certainly with the budget we had. So we're not expecting that by any means. We never have. But we do want to be successful. We want to target good, deep cup runs. We want to win cups. And we want to be a very solid Tier 3 side. So there's probably some questions for you guys there. You'll see a lot of new faces around the club. But we're signing people that want to be at the club, that believe in the projects that we're creating, the manager we've got in place, and that want to play Tier 3 football ultimately. We all might have our opinion on whether the players going to Tier 7 should have or not. That's for them to decide. But ultimately, if you're not desperate to play at the highest level you can and be a Tier 3 player, it pains me to say this because I love some of these players that have moved on, but you're probably not the right player for us long term. We're trying to be a very good, successful Tier 3 team. We need to be targeting professionalisation long term, and if that's on your radar right now, it was probably always going to come to an end. Maybe better that we have a clean sort of start this summer under Dom and rebuild. The good news is we're going to be bringing you more women's content than never before this year. Super excited for you to come along on the journey in a way you haven't really been able to before. So that's something to look forward to. And you're going to have new fan favourites. And there's some really top players coming in. And right off the bat, we're going to be taking this new look women's team to Singapore, along with our men's team, very, very soon. So stay tuned for content there. First time the hashtag's playing in Asia. Cannot wait for it. And I'll be there as well. And we'll get a chance to meet some of our new players up close and personal. But without further ado, let's meet our new manager. Okay, guys, it is my privilege and pleasure to officially welcome Dom Edwards in your first official capacity as #United Women's Manager. Good to have you.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to get started. Obviously, pre-season's about to start as well. So, yeah, can't wait to hit the ground running.
Yeah, very much so. We appointed you, back end of last season. So, obviously, we've known you're going to be in charge for quite a few months now. But this is where the official duties begin. And it's a bit of a different job for you, isn't it? I mean, how challenging has it been knowing you're coming into a side that it's a rebuild. It is a rebuild. There is some existing players, and we'll get onto that, the ones that are staying with us. But do you like that side of things? You get to impose your identity on the squad from day one?
Yeah, I think stepping into a club like this, like firstly, in terms of a club that just does things a little bit different, is super exciting. But coming in as a coach, and I see myself as a coach in terms of like, I want to build a style of play. Like, this is the perfect time to be able to do that. Most clubs, like, you'll step in and you've got to really shift from one style to another. Whereas actually, this time around, we can really maybe start by looking at what core group of players we have, how do we maybe be a bit pragmatic and go, right, what are they good at? How do we maybe look to build them into how we want to play, which is a little bit more possession focused, maybe slightly less transitional, try to control those transitions a little bit, and look to, I think, be a little bit unpredictable as well. We're not going to be tied to just one way of playing, like saying, right, we're just going to play 4-3-3, or we'll be able to adapt to different situations throughout the season. I think like being able to do that is the key to a successful team, and us in terms of my coaching team, being coaches and be able to having experiences, be able to do that. That's something we're really just looking forward to be able to get involved in.
And it isn't, obviously you're the face of the team very much, but it's not just you that's coming in, is it? You've got a whole group of staff behind you to support and kind of get us closer to that professional feel.
Yeah, exactly. I think like it's the real norm in youth academy football, where you might have 6 or 7 staff around one team, at 21s or 16s or 18s level. And that's sort of what I've been exposed to. So managing the team as well as managing the group of players. So what we're bringing in here is you've got myself as the manager, you've got an assistant manager and a first team coach. Then outside of that, you've got that real sort of performance support team. So you've got a couple goalkeeper coaches coming in. You've got a strength and conditioning coach, a physio, and an analyst as well, to be able to make sure that actually what we offer is on par, if not better than anything else in Tier 3. But also, is kind of can replicate what maybe some of the young players that we're bringing in will replicate what they've been doing at the likes of Arsenal or the likes at West Ham. So it kind of feels similar for them and helps them hit the ground running as well.
Yeah, and you've touched on it a bit there, creating that environment, giving them that setup, because it does get harder every year at Tier 3. Every other club is professionalising and around us. We've got big teams coming into the division this year. But your background is very much in the elite side of the game. But it's a varied background, because you've been doing it for a long. You're a young manager, but you've actually been in football. I remember, is it Hertzler, when he came in at Brighton last year, youngest manager in Premier League history? Everyone was sort of like, you're a young manager. He's like, well, no, I'm a young man. I'm not a young manager, because he'd been managing since his early 20s as well. So give us a little bit of a flavour of your football story.
Yeah, I mean, I started coaching when I was 15, 16. So that's now, 18 years coaching, which is a mad amount of time. It's really long. So yeah, like I'm still relatively young in a management sense, but I've got a huge amount of experience. And I think, every single thing you do, or I've done until this point, I've just learned something different. So, when I first started coaching, back in 2007-8, I had an under 10 girls team at that point. So, I've been involved in women's football, I guess, for that long, really. But during that period as well, I've coached university teams, so some top teams like in Loughborough, for example. But I've coached in boys' academies, in Cat 1 academies. I've coached in girls' academies, for example, like West Ham and Arsenal as well, and had, success at all those levels. But I think for me now, it's just a case of trying to apply everything I've learned over that last 18 years and really put it into practice in Tier 3 now and really help #kick on, because obviously they had amazing success in recent years, and we want to continue that and hopefully progress from there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, we always have to evolve. The game's evolving around us. Women's football is evolving. The thing that I'm super proud of, maybe the most of many things we've done at the club, is that platform we can produce for young players. We've had so many players in the women's game and the men's game kick on to get professional contracts elsewhere. And it's kind of like, the dream is that we rise with them, but sometimes they're just too good, too quick, and you have to let them go. And, as much as it hurts to let a great player go to a higher level, it's a real sign of success, and it helps recruit the next lot, because you can say, look, you could be the next whoever. So with your background in elite youth football, your connections in there, it was one of many things that made you shine in the interview process. And you were the first ever manager that's actually been employed by that's been in an interview process. We've only had 2 other managers before. Jason Stevens, obviously, we inherited, so he was already in place. And then, and Devs, I did appoint, but there was no interview process. I knew him and I gave him the job, and it was a pretty well vindicated decision. He's done very well for us. But you came through because of that attention to detail, but also those links. How are you going to try and utilize them? And, do you see a world where we end up with a younger squad maybe than we have in the past?
Yeah, we'll definitely have top young players coming in. So 1 or 2 that we've already brought in from West Ham that we'll talk about. We've got others that are going to come in throughout my network on dual signs, who are excellent young players. So Youth England internationals, for example. But I think what we really want is to have that average age of around 25. So, we do want a young and exciting player to come in, and we'll definitely give them that platform to be able to progress, as you mentioned. So like a Macy Nichols, for example, who's been super successful in recent times. But I think like the key there is thinking about, if that player's coming in as a young player, they've got to be someone who's really ambitious, really hungry, and they want to really do well. And those older players as well, they're just as important. So the oldest player we've got in the group is about 38 and the youngest player is about 17. So there's that real split in terms of like completely different generations, but actually there's real positives to that as well. They can really learn from each other, I think. So yeah, there'll be some good young players coming in, but really we know in terms of to be successful at this level, you're probably looking at around 25, and other teams as well, in the division above, London City and INS's, their average age was a little bit older again. So we don't want to go too young, but those young players that come in, they're going to be at the level to be able to perform.
So let's talk about some players then. I've covered earlier in the video some of the departing players. Starting off with existing players that are sticking around. Who are you looking forward to working with from the old era, if you like?
I mean, there's so many exciting players that I think are still here. So, for example, like Emma Samways, obviously a bit of a club legend, been around the club for a little while, had her own injury issues, and I think she only came back sort of January, February time this year, and that's obviously so difficult to come back from. Spent some time in the reserves, but this year, hopefully, we can support her to really kick on and become a core key player in the squad again. Players like, Flo Donnelly, really interesting backgrounds. And I think a player that kind of sums up the model that we run at Hashtag, where actually got her own career, but actually really experienced, probably technically good enough to play at a higher level. But because she's finding the balance between football and career, like we're the perfect sort of landing spot for her. And I know can, again, become a core player, in our midfield. And then other players, of course, like Frida Isi as well. So coming back for pre-season, which will be really exciting to work with a player with her technical quality, which obviously is absolutely outstanding, probably technically one of the best players in the league, really. Obviously, last year, maybe we didn't see enough of her due to injuries. So it'll be great to work with her and help her be able to kick on and help the team, because I know she really wants to do that. And then we've got Honor Norton, who obviously was a dual sign previously from Charlton. Really athletic, really powerful. A player, again, who's a younger player, but just has that potential that I think could really kick on at this level. And then also, obviously, as well, we've got Frankie Angel, who's we've extended the contract for this year. So a really brilliant goalkeeper. And talking to Andy, our goalkeeper coach as well, just someone that we think actually could probably be brilliant with her feet, that maybe, and her distribution could be excellent this season, and maybe that's something we haven't really seen. So really excited to just sort of see what she can do in terms of the building of her play and how we can maybe play through the pressure using our goalkeeper this year. So someone, again, that's really excited to come back, I think. So it's going to be exciting. More
clean sheets than any goalkeeper in the history of Hashtag across men and women's team, and she can hopefully extend that record even more next year. So you've got, a core of returning players there. We've also got players like Macy Nichols, Frankie Finlayson, who have been on dual regs with us in the past, and we're working on a number of different ways to bring them back in, whether it's as permanent players or loans or dual regs again, because as young players with bright futures, obviously they want to see how high they can play, and we want that to happen to them as well. But there is a chance we're hoping to see them again in a Hashtag shirt as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like I say, they're the players with potential that we know can really kick on, and we can kind of be that springboard for them to go and play at a higher level, which we know they're capable of doing. Someone like obviously Sophie Bajan, she's been able to do that with Hashtag and kick on. So yeah, and like someone like Macy, I worked with her when she was like 13 for like 3 years. So from what I see in terms of videos and when I've watched her playing for Hashtag last season or the season before as well, she's the same player, really tenacious, really aggressive, someone that's like obviously excellent technically, but she's a real winner and she wants to win. So those younger players we have that are coming up as well. So for example, we're bringing up Annabelle Webb from the reserves, who's been really successful down there, and Ellie Moore as well coming up from the reserves. Just players that are really hungry. And like it sounds really cliche, but like we always talk to players about being like a hungry lion. I think Emma Hayes said it once, and it always stuck with me about, you don't want to be that lion that's just ate loads and now they're tired. You've got to be a hungry lion. It doesn't matter how much you've won, doesn't matter what you've achieved. Like we want you to be hungry, and I think we want all of our players to be that. Particularly those younger players coming in, they've got to be hungry. They can't just step into an environment with senior players and expect to be able to perform. You have to be able to work as hard as you can to then be able to achieve something in the game.
And you've got to be a hungry lioness as well, because if you know your lions, you know that the lionesses are the ones that do the hunting. The men just lay about not doing much, and then they get involved in a little scrap. Okay, so lots of young players coming through. Obviously, quite a bit of continuity. Obviously, we've seen a lot of players move on as well. Who have you brought in? That was your first job, really, wasn't it? Was to sign some players, bolster the squad in certain positions. Some of these have been announced already, but who can you tell us that we've brought in?
So we mentioned it earlier briefly. So Bonnie Horwood, one of the sort of on the older end of the scale. However, someone who's so experienced, has played sort of women's championship for a number of years, been at Ipswich, was at Billericay last year. Someone that I would describe as a bit of a conductor, like a Kira Walsh, or in the men's game, like a Busquets years ago, like that kind of player who can receive the ball off the back four, look to actually help us dominate possession, and that's sort of where we want to move. So I think, if we look at if we play, we need to be pragmatic in terms of how we play, right? Like we can't always just try to dominate the ball. Sometimes we've got to be a little bit more direct, and we'll be able to hopefully get to that point where we can adapt. But if we want to be able to play to keep possession, we need players in the midfield that are comfortable doing that. And she's someone 100% that can do that and can conduct play and probably control the tempo of play as well, which I think is brilliant. A couple other players brought in. So Liv Smith, she's a centre-back, play left-sided or right-sided centre-back. She's come in from Billericay. So her background was sort of a Chelsea youth player until around under-18s. She went across to the States, came back, probably came back at really frustrating time for her where COVID had just hit. So actually in terms of getting a contract or getting a playing opportunity at that point, that was quite difficult. She has her own sort of career now, but still super ambitious, still wants to get better as a player, and kind of hits that prime age group we were talking about earlier on as well. So someone that I think could be a real key member of the team. Other players, so for example, Flo Jackson, she's come in from Billericay also actually, so she can play sort of left back, right back, wing back as well. Again, great age for us, but someone as well that I think is a bit of a winner, really competitive, really wants to do well, and actually these players will all be going off to Singapore as well. So hopefully the team can the fans can see them. Then we've got a player that I know really well from last year, so Ariana Adesam. Player from West Ham, sort of 17, 18 years old, so quite young, but really athletic and a little bit like Macy actually in terms of she just loves that 1v1 battle. So during the trial process, I sort of invited her down to get a little look, and I tried to match her up against players that I knew had played Tier 3, and there was times when she was bullying those players. If the ball's bouncing and there's a 50-50, she'll get her body in the way, she'll use her arms, she'll be super aggressive. I think fans will love her and they love the way she plays. And that kind of sums up, I think, how we want our team to be, really aggressive, but as well, we've got that technical quality to be able to make a difference. Yeah, and then we've also got Alicia Mulvaney as well, coming in as a wide player, but can also play as a 10. I think a player who's shown like massive resilience. So quite a fair few of our players have had quite severe injuries in the past. So whether that's sort of an ACL ligament damage, that's obviously something which is really common in the women's game. Alicia sadly had 2 ACL injuries in her career. But I think what that does is, if you're still playing after that, it means you're super resilient. It means you probably know how to look after your body really, really well. You're really aware of the gym work you've got to do, the prehabs, what are you doing to make sure you don't get injured again? And if you do have any other niggles, what rehab you're going to do. So those sorts of players I think are really important. But in terms of her on the pitch, she came down through the trial process as well. And like straight away, you could just see that she was technically ahead of a lot of the players. But her mindset in terms of like her attitude to play was excellent. So during the trial process, we had sort of one of our coaching staff to referee, just so they can be in there and they can listen. And straight away he came over and said, that Alicia, she's just telling everyone what to do. She's saying, can you move out my passing lane? Or just like the real good technical information, not just making a noise for the sake of it. So yeah, again, like that's excellent. No, they're the sort of players we want. Yeah,
and obviously we're doing this video quite a lot earlier than we'd normally do an update video. Normally we'd do it last possible moment of pre-season, so we've got a fair bit of the pre-season's not even started yet as we record this, so expect some movement. Obviously we're still working on some signings as well. We're working on a couple like what we'd probably call marquee signings as well to come in, and along with all of that, obviously we want to give you guys way better chances to keep up to date with the women's team this year. We for all good reasons, but we didn't cover the team over the last few years to the level they deserved. They were doing fantastic things, won a trophy every single year as a football club that we've existed now, and hopefully that continues, no pressure. But regardless, we need to tell the story. We're playing against huge teams at Tier 3. We've got these opportunities and things like the FA Cup. We want to really cover that the best we can. So, yeah, expect that, and we'll obviously have more information on that stuff going forward. And we'll have more information on signings. The best place to keep up to date with that stuff, obviously, is our socials. So make sure you're following not just the main account, but also the women's specific accounts as well. So I guess, to finish, Dom, is really, what are you looking forward to most about this season? Your first at Hashtag. We're now going into our third season at Tier 3. We've obviously finished second both times. I've said it way before you've come in that, we've really over-delivered in those years. Jason was never tasked with finishing second. It was very much an incredible job, and every season it changes, right? So obviously Ipswich have been promoted last year, Portsmouth the year before, but every team's financial position changes. We've got Bournemouth coming into the league from the league below. They won it. Well, they didn't lose a game, did they, last year? Super competitive. They've got one of our ex-players, Phoebe Williams, you might remember, very, very strong centre midfielder. You've obviously got really strong teams already, like Oxford United going big this year. They've got Holly Turner, Maisie Barker, two of our previous players. We've got Watford always in and amongst it as well. Real Bedford coming into the league, who we know really well. We've had a really strong tier at tier 4. I'm sure I'm forgetting at least one or two teams because there's always like
Exeter.
Exeter. Yeah. I mean, there's very big teams at this level. So what, you and I have spoken about what we're trying to do next year, but what are you expecting? What are you expecting of yourself and your staff?
I think, look, we know that because of the turnover, it's going to take just a little bit of time to probably embed a new playing style and start to build that togetherness. But we've got pre-season to do that. What we want to do is really just hit the ground running. I mean, the margins for error are just so small in Tier 3 and in the women's game in particular, and the Championship's the same. You lose 1-2 games and suddenly maybe you're not in the mix anymore. I mean, the positive this year is that the second place team in the league will go into a playoff against the Northern team.
That's crazy, by the way. It basically means that the last 2 years, if this rule had been in place, we would have had a playoff game for promotion to Tier 2, which we might have had a good chance of winning, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's happened before. When we first season of Step 6 in the men's league, we had to win the league to go up. It was super tight. We just about did it. We got up, and the next year the top 4 teams got promoted.
Yeah,
they just changed the rules on us. But it gives you something to aim for as well. Like, I mean, it's a difficult one. Like I say, how much do you think the fixture list impacts it? Because like, if you start off with, it can go both ways. First season at Tier 3, we had the 5 strongest teams back to back, but we won them all. So we were actually in amazing shape. But obviously, it can also go the other way. Like you said, a couple games can not derail a season, but mathematically, it can be hard to recover from. Like, what would you like? Would you prefer, a little bit of a? There's no easy games, but shall we say a chance to get used to things, or would you like to go one of the favourites, if you like, straight away?
I think we just go hard straight away. I think you just get straight into it and you start to build that momentum. I think like the thing is, if you win, the first game against, let's say, Watford, for example, you win your second game against Oxford, for example, like you've got momentum. Like seasons are built on momentum. You can. The worst case scenario is you win your first 5 because you're playing maybe the 5 poorest teams in the league. Yeah. Suddenly then you think maybe you're at a specific level. Like you need to test yourself to know what level you're at. And particularly with like the turnover of squad, we've got some brilliant competitors and some players with loads of experience at the high level and Tier 3. But because they've not played together before, like we need to test. So I'm happy to have that test early on. I think that's the best way forward. Yeah,
my hunch this year is that I think more teams are going to take points off each other this year.
I agree completely.
I think last year, obviously, Ipswich, we're close to perfect. We got a good result against them, obviously, and we weren't far behind. And you kind of have to be to sort of wrap up the season any earlier than last game. But I think this year, looking at the teams coming up and who we've got, I think it might be a lower points total that wins you the league this year. I'm not asking for an answer to this question now because I think you probably need pre-season to work it out. But obviously, a huge job for you is you got to appoint a new captain.
Yeah, but I think that's exciting for the players as well. I think it's kind of all to play for, isn't it? And the easy thing with a captain is just to pick someone who's the oldest player or pick someone with loads of experience. It doesn't work like that. I think like you need the captain to almost pick itself. So when you say, right, this is the captain, everyone goes, yeah, fair. I can see why that's that person. I think they have to have certain values. They have to uphold those. And like the values that we want in a team is like we want that togetherness, as I mentioned. We want to be the hardest working team on any pitch. So if a player isn't the hardest working player, then they're probably not going to be the captain. Yeah. We want to make sure you've got that kind of like trust between coaching staff and players, and there's respect there as well. So again, the captain has to have those values. But in general, we do have to pick a new captain, and I can't wait to see who that'll be.
Yeah, same. I'm super excited for it, and it's like a whole new chapter. Like loads of stuff going on at the club, not just in the women's team, but all around it with the investment round we've done and the more content we want to bring you guys. And hopefully it's going to be a really exciting season on and off the pitch. Obviously, your job is to worry about what happens on it. My job and everyone else's job is to make you guys look good and film it all. And I just want to say a massive welcome to you, Dom. It's amazing to have you and your whole team. Some really impressive individuals that we're really looking forward to backing and having a great season.
Cool. Thank you, mate. Can't wait to get started.
Let's go. So we'll see you guys very soon. More women's content come in. If you've got any particular questions about it or anything you want to see, leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe. and we'll see you very soon. Up the tags.